Hi guys! So as you know, I recently moved to London, as you can tell from the background change, because obviously this screams London. You know what I mean. This was 2 weeks ago to be precise. Somehow in that time I have already managed to acquire 7 books. So I figured let's do my first ever living in London book haul. Let's start with the most recent and work our way backwards. So this first book I picked up for myself, and it is Panti, translated by Arunava Sina and written by Sangeeta Bandyopadhyay. Really sorry if I butchered that. I believe the author is Bengali, and I picked this one up because of Simon from Savage Reads. I bumped into him outside Foyles and we had a wee wander around, and he mentioned this collection which is from Tilted Axis Press, and this is the first volume in what is going to be a series of different translated writers, I believe. Honestly, I have very little idea what this is about. I simply picked it up because Simon mentioned it. I mentioned that Deborah Smith was involved in the project, who is the translator of The Vegetarian by Han Kang, and yeah, all round I was like, okay, cool, I don't need to know what it's about. I'll buy it. Why not? Now the next book was sent to me from Will over at Vintage Books. Of course Simon and Will's channels will be linked down below and you should check them out if you haven't already. This is So Long See You Tomorrow, and I've heard Will talk about this before. I think it's one of his favourite books actually. And it's the story of 2 teenage boys who grow up to be farmers, who've both had very tragic lives, and it's a reflection on their story from 50 years in the future, after I think one of them has committed suicide. So it sounds very tragic, but I'm imagining very moving as well. I'm gathering a nice collection of short books I'll be able to get through quickly, I think. Now the previous day Simon had actually given me a book very kindly, and that is The Less Than Perfect Legend of Donna Creosote by Dan Micklethwaite. This book has been shortlisted for the Guardian Not the Booker Prize, and I've seen a few people talking about it, including Simon, who really enjoyed it. And this is about a young woman who's kind of disenchanted with the city but decides to go out there and try and turn it into the magical fairy tale world that she wants to live in. I previously bought myself one other book, and that is Noam Chomsky's Because We Say So. I have never read anything by Noam Chomsky, which I'm very surprised by myself. Noam Chomsky is a very famous contemporary intellectual who's been around for decades and is still doing amazing stuff, and he's written a lot of books. He is American, and this book is about the aggressive imperialistic tendencies of the government in the United States, and I believe in these narratives Noam Chomsky challenges some of the things that the United States government has done in the past few decades. Can't say much more about it. I have read little pieces by Noam Chomsky before, and I've watched television shows and talks and documentaries he's done, but like I said, I've never read one of his full books, so I think this will be really interesting. The next lovely little book was a gift from Jen over at Jen Campbell, and that is Eric by Shaun. You might have heard of Shaun. He wrote The Arrival, which a few people I know have talked about on BookTube, and it's a silent graphic novel about an immigrant man, and this one has words. See, look, words, but also illustrations. See, illustrations. And it's just a little illustrated version of one of his short stories that Jen loved and decided to share the love by giving me and Lauren a copy of breakfast one morning, and I haven't actually read this one yet, even though it's so short, because I feel like it might make me quite emotional, so I want to read it when I am prepared to be in an emotional state. So I'm saving it for that day. All the description on the back says is, some years ago we had a foreign exchange student come to stay, but he didn't want to use our guest room. He preferred to sleep in our pantry. Now I'm sure you're all equally aware that I didn't just move to London, I also got a new job at Pan Macmillan, and I have a couple of books here that I got at work, one of which I've already read, and that is The Wonder by Emma Donoghue. I really enjoyed this. I talked about it in my August reading wrap up, so I'll link that down below if you want to hear a little bit more. But this is set in 1800s Ireland, and it's about a nurse who is enlisted to watch over a young girl in rural Ireland who maintains that she hasn't eaten anything for 4 months, and essentially the people in her town and surrounding area want to know whether this is some sort of hoax or whether it is some sort of divine intervention. It's very slow paced but intriguing and moving, and yeah, I just really enjoyed this one. And lastly is some crime fiction, and that is The Face on the Cutting Room Floor by Cameron McCabe. This is a Picador classic. I love the Picador modern classics. They're so beautiful with Lovely spines. And what's meant to be really intriguing about this one is not just that a famous actress was found dead at the beginning of the book and a mystery needs to be solved, but the detective of the story disappears halfway through the story and we get an entirely new narrator from about the halfway point. So I think this book itself has a bit of an intriguing backstory and it sounds quite different from a lot of the detective stories I've read. It was first written in and is set in the 1930s as well, so I love that. I love me a bit of a period mystery, so I'm excited for this one. But those are all the books I've recently acquired. Not a crazy amount, but I just thought it was kind of funny that a little pile had built up next to my bed in such a short space of time and in a new city. I hope you enjoyed this book haul though, and if you have any thoughts on any of the books I've mentioned, please do let me know. Until next time though, happy reading and I'll see you all again soon. Bye! I'm here today to do my Diversathon reading wrap up. This is an extra wrap up for the month because I took part in the Diversathon readathon,